The European Super League is here. Jose Mourinho sacked by Spurs, Flick wants Bayern exit, a transfer roundup, and today's Emoji Mondays all coming up in the next few minutes as I'm your host, Matt Froelich. You are the OneFootballers and this is the Daily News. So first up, and the European Super League is here. Over the course of the last 12 hours or so, major clubs across Europe have committed themselves to the idea of a European Super League, and there is just so many questions. As a football fan, I have so many questions. So first off, there's the Big Six from England, which is Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United and Liverpool. There's also Barcelona, Real Madrid and Atletico from Spain, and AC Milan, Inter and Juventus from Serie A. And together, they're going to make up this new European Super League, which basically is going to make them a lot of money. Now, there has been absolute outrage from the rest of the footballing community. The Premier League are obviously very unhappy. They have said that maybe there could be potential that some clubs could be docked points. Potentially, they'll be kicked out of the league altogether. UEFA are saying that the players who are involved in this, by the way, this decision has been taken by the clubs and not necessarily by the players, so it'll be interesting to see how some of them react. Maybe they can't play in the Champions League. Maybe they can't play in the Euros or even the World Cup. There are so many different facets to this decision. The question is, how is it going to affect domestic football? If, for some reason, this European Super League, which apparently is supposed to be played on Wednesday nights and is basically the answer to UEFA creating this new formatted Champions League, if it's to go ahead, and these teams are to play a midweek game in the European Super League and then go back to the Premier League, if it doesn't affect the domestic schedule too much, is that okay? Is it not okay? I don't know. You guys let me know in the comment section down below. As for the European Super League, it does look like it's completely taking away from the fans, but they have, of course, decided to make their promise against this and said that they are working closely with Premier League clubs and with governing bodies to make sure the game is sustainable for all teams and all players at every single level. I guess what I'm trying to say here is there's so much information and there's so many more questions to ask. I just don't really know what's going to happen. We'll have to see as events unfold. One of the most shocking things to me is that they said it's going to start as soon as August. Again, another question actually that pops to my mind now is that would fans be happy seeing these big games every week? Can you imagine watching an El Clasico like every 2 weeks? I mean, maybe if you're like a Lionel Messi fan, this would be great. But I guess not. I don't know. There's just so many questions. It's rather confusing. Anyway, of course, we will keep you updated with absolutely everything that comes out and every single reaction from every governing body, every team, every player, as and when we hear more about it. And second up, you would have seen the news by now, and in fact, we are re-recording this little bit just to make sure that you guys knew all the latest that Jose Mourinho has been sacked by Tottenham Hotspur. After 17 months in charge, the Portuguese manager is out of the door. This, of course, is in quite a precarious position as we are just 6 days away from Spurs playing Manchester City in the Carabao Cup final. As for who's going to take over, we aren't quite sure just yet, but for the remainder of the season, including the rest of the Premier League, it looks like Ryan Mason, the former Spurs player and youth coach, will be taking charge of the first team alongside Chris Powell. Now, of course, with Mourinho at the club, it does throw a lot of shadows over the rest of the future of some of the players as well. But let's talk about the positives and who could potentially come in to replace him. There are quite a few names on the favourites list amongst the bookies. One of the big names on the list is Julian Nagelsmann, who he has been linked with Bayern Munich, but as you'll see in a minute in the next part of this daily news, he hasn't exactly said he would be going to Bayern, but hasn't also completely rejected the idea either. At his current club, RB Leipzig, he is desperately trying to chase down Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga table, but it's not quite working. If Spurs manage to get him, it will be a young, forward-thinking, attacking manager and would really suit Spurs' style of play, something similar to what Mauricio Pochettino was doing rather than Jose Mourinho. Elsewhere, and second favourite on the list is Brendan Rodgers, but is he going to be tempted to leave Leicester for Spurs if he gets them into the Champions League? Who knows? And there are a few other names on there as well, including Nuno Espirito Santo. Can't see Spurs going for him at the moment, and Diego Simeone. Definitely can't see him leaving Atletico Madrid either. Anyway, moving on to another big story that actually broke over the weekend, but of course every story is going to be overshadowed by the European Super League, and that is Hansi Flick admitting that he does want to leave Bayern Munich. There were reports that he told the club last week, and now he's come out and officially said it, that he did in fact tell the club and told the players as well that he will be leaving Bayern at the end of the season. This looks intrinsically tied to the fact that Jogi Löw is going to be leaving the Germany job and that the national team position will be available. And personally, I'm not quite sure why he's making such a desperate play for the German team. As a club manager, yes, there may be certain club roles that aren't necessarily available at the moment. You could create legacies and rivalries throughout their career. You could not want to move directly from one to another. As for the German national job, it's always going to be there every few years, right? Like, I know Jogi Löw has been in charge for quite some time, but normally the national team job changes after every second tournament. I don't know why he's making such a beeline to be the German boss now. Like, surely you could be Bayern boss for a few more years or another team boss for a few more years. Seems rather strange that you'd be so determined to leave Bayern, leave such a fantastic club with so many fantastic opportunities to make your legacy and win so many trophies, work with so many top players, just to be the German national team manager. Anyway, that's not my decision, that is Hansi Flick's. As for who's going to replace him at Bayern, there has been a few names thrown around, and obviously one of the main ones is Julian Nagelsmann, because of the job he's done with RB Leipzig, and it would just be so Bayern Munich to take the best manager from their closest rivals and install him as their own manager, as they seem to do with lots of other players. But who knows, if that's the next step in Nagelsmann's career, good luck to him. He has said that there is absolutely nothing at the moment, but also hasn't ruled out the possibility of going to Bayern in the first place. Alongside this, there was talk that former player Xabi Alonso could join, but he's just signed a new deal as Sociedad reserve manager, and Jurgen Klopp, and like we said before, I don't think he's leaving Liverpool, so that one's not happening. Next up then, a quick round-up of the rest of the news and transfers that you might have missed from the weekend, and the MLS is back, and so is Chicharito. The former Manchester United forward bagged 2 goals as he helped his side defeat Phil Neville's Inter Miami 3-2 on the opening weekend. Elsewhere, and Carlo Ancelotti wants to make Robin Olsen's loan deal from Roma a permanent one this summer. Barcelona have not yet offered Lionel Messi a contract extension beyond the end of the season. And lastly but not least, Ryan Gravenberch was delighted about the fact that Ajax won the Dutch Cup this weekend, and the 18-year-old sensation says he'd love to stay with the club. Next up then, a quick round-up of your Friday feels, where Jesus Pinnoth, I think I pronounced that right, said that Barcelona would win the Copa del Rey, and they did. What a victory that was. Joseph McCallion guessed that Chelsea would beat Manchester City 1-0, and lastly but not least, Denver guessed that Spurs and Everton would play out a 2-2 draw. That was way back on Friday night. Feels like a lifetime ago. Finally then, we come to this week's Emoji Mondays. This is where we throw a couple of emojis down over some of the weekend's hottest action. First off, the best player for me goes to Frenkie de Jong. I just mentioned the Copa del Rey final with Barcelona. He was sensational. Even though he got a goal and 2 assists, it was just his all-round play that was so good. When Frenkie de Jong moved to Barcelona, I kind of thought of him as like a neat passing midfielder, maybe not necessarily going to get forward too much or get involved in the all-round play. He was just there to keep the ball ticking over, pretty much a Busquets replacement. Proved completely wrong. The guy was doing everything, a driving force in Barcelona's midfield, doing what Busquets could do and more. He was so fantastic, and yeah, the goal and the assist on top of that is just the cherry on top of the icing, on top of that Copa del Rey cake for Barcelona. Next up then, the crazy moment of the weekend is Dani Ceballos' disallowed goal. Arsenal should have had a goal, and it was ruled out because Bukayo Saka's toe was offside. If you look at the replay, this is what's bizarre about it. He's in front of the defender. The defender's goal side. Bukayo Saka's thinking, the defender's behind me, I'm definitely onside. Yet his toe is stretching back, and VAR have called it offside, and I know that's the rules, but it's just unbelievable. Last but not least, the best result of the weekend goes to Leicester, as they beat Southampton in the FA Cup semi-final. Now, normally you think Leicester beating Southampton is not actually that big of a deal, but for what it meant for Leicester, for their first FA Cup final as they'll play off against Chelsea in 57 years, I believe. Is it 57 years? Something like that. Since the late 60s. Unbelievable. Such a fantastic result for them, and really good work from Brendan Rodgers. And it really, even if they do slip out of the Champions League, really does give some gratification to everything that he's doing at the club. That's all from me then. Make sure you let me know your thoughts, especially on the European Super League, down below. Check out everything else we've got going on, and until next time, I will see you guys later.